In this lesson, we're going to continue looking at blocks, and I'm going to introduce you to dynamic blocks. Okay, we've got our drawing here, and in the last lesson, we made all these windows a block so that we could easily modify them. Okay, now let's say that we have a problem. Let's say that all these windows are not supposed to be the same size. Let's say that we need to change their height. Well, since they're a block, we can't easily change that. Now, one thing that people have done in the past to allow for this is to create your block using making sure that it's 1 unit by 1 unit. For example, if I come over here and I just draw a block that's 1 by 1, I'm just going to do a rectangle 1 by 1. I'm going to zoom in on it. I'm going to make a block, just hitting B at the bottom. And I'm going to name it, Win-A. I'm going to pick my point, and I'm going to put the midpoint at the top again, and I'm going to select my objects. Tell it OK. All right, now I'm going to zoom back to my previous. If I select my block, I'm going to bring my properties up. I can change my scale right here to be, let's say in this case, 36 for my X and 60 for my Y. And now what it did, let me move this over here and close it, is that now I have a block that looks a lot like my block when we first started. Very simple and all that. Okay, but now let's see what happens whenever we change the block. Remember, we added some lines in here. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to edit this block. And this time I'm going to tell it to edit with the block editor. When we bring up the block editor, it brings us back to our original size of our block. That's why I chose this instead of edit in place. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some offsetting. So I'm going to go back to home, and I'm going to tell it to offset. Now I'd have to do some math to figure out in my current 1 by 1 unit what I would need to end up with the same offsets I had before, but I'm just going to kind of do it visually this time. I'm going to just drag over about what I think it needs to be, and then I'm going to drag over a little bit more. And that's kind of sort of what we had. And I'm going to tell it to close the block editor, and I want to save my changes. Now, it kind of looks like our block, but the problem is what it's doing is it's stretching my block because I have different X and Y values. Remember, I have 36 and 60, which means that they're not equal all the way around. So that method's not going to work very well for us. It would allow us to easily go and change this. And if, for instance, if we were square, since that's how our block was created, it would look okay. But whenever we stretch it to where we have different X and Y values, it just really messes it up. So that's a method people used in the past to do blocks. That's not the one that we're going to learn about. What we're going to learn about is how to do that with a dynamic block. Now, I've got a block of a window right here, and I'm just going to drag it over here. And what I can do with this block is notice when I select it, not only do I have my point that represents an insertion point, I also have these arrows. That's because this block is a dynamic block. And so what I can do is I can actually pick one of these arrows and I can drag it or I can give it a value, but I can actually just make this whatever I want it to be. And notice everything is staying proportional. Everything is kind of working out okay. I just have the ability to go and change the width and the depth of this block. And that's the beauty of dynamic blocks. I've got a few more over here that I've created. I've got a stud wall. It's got a top plate and a bottom plate and insulation in the middle. If you select it, you see that I have arrows here as well. And I can just drag the insulation and I can drag the stud wall. I have this defined for those to be two different properties because I want my insulation to stop right here short. And I might have some blocking or something in this wall that I want to add, but it allows me to modify them individually. I've also have some brick that I have a dynamic block of. And so again, if I drag my brick up and down, it adds courses to the brick. I have some plywood and I also have some gypboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just kind of move some of these into place. And you can see how easy it is to modify my section changes are made. I can just simply drag them by their grips, pick the points I want them to go to, and I've been able to modify my blocks. I can also select the block, go to my properties, and give it, for instance, the distance. So if I wanted this to be 8 foot, I can type in 8 foot, and it'll change this block to be 8 foot high. And again, I could type in this one, or I could drag it. Same with all these other ones. So you can see the power of a dynamic block is it takes the function of a block, which means that you only created the symbol once and you use it multiple times. You have the ability to redefine the block, all those kind of things. But then it also gives you the ability to dynamically alter their dimensions. So that's what dynamic blocks will do. And in the next lesson, we're going to learn how to start making dynamic blocks.